So welcome back to a new section in the course. In the last section we covered a lot of ground. First we started with back-end list development. Then we dove right into building a component for the dashboard. And that listed the top 10 best performing customers. Getting our feet wet, we moved right into adding a customer to the database and then finally onto listing all customers instead of just the top 10. Now this is the third of an 8 section in the course. And over the next 5 videos, we will be really exploring the rest of the features of any enterprise database application. We will edit customers and sales, add sales to specific customers, view those sales by customer, and even talk about custom controls by leveraging the Angular UI Bootstrap. This is the first video in this section. In this video, we will be reusing the same view and controller we used for adding the customer. The only new artifact will be a new route. We will discuss how this works and what building blocks had to exist for it to be possible. Finally, we will add a customer to the system. Let's start by reviewing the first line. Taking note to the isAdd attribute, we see our first example of building reusable components. We're letting the detail header know we are in an add or edit operation. If we look now at the controller, and specifically at this line, we can see how we set that Boolean value. If the route name is add customer, then we know we are adding, otherwise we are editing. Moving on to take a look at the operation. If we look at the next line, we see that it's really set based on the isAdd Boolean value. Pretty simple, but we are building something that can be shared between add and edit. Generally speaking, though not always, less code equals less bugs. Moving on now, we need to take a look at the next little piece of logic. This is about as straightforward as the rest. By default, we are initializing the controller in an add state. We know this because of the first line. However, if we find that it's in an edit state, we will then reset the model to the result of a query. Moving on to the last piece of interesting logic, the persistence of the operation. Now here we see that the only difference between an add and an edit is where we go after a successful save. On the add form, we go straight to the customer state, or all customers page, and in the edit state, we actually just go back. Because the edit form could be initiated from more than one place. Alright, so with that in place, we do need a couple more things. We need a new state, and having a look at this state, we see it's very basic. It has an identifiable name, URL, template, and of course shares the same controller as the add state. It does have one difference. Notice that :ID at the end of the URL. That means we require some string value at the end of the URL, and we want it called ID in the state params. And we also need to link to that state from somewhere. Thankfully, the all customers view already has that link. If we go back and look at the reusable customer listing, we see that if the controls are not hidden, we have a link to edit customer here. It does have a funky syntax though. Let's go over that. It's leveraging the UISREF directive to build the link. That's good. However, you might remember that the edit customer state required an ID. Remember that :ID at the end of the URL? That's what we're doing when we call it like a function and then send in the ID as a property on an object. Okay, with these things in place, let's see it in action. We learned how to edit a customer. In our next video, we are going to be discussing how to add a sale to an existing customer.